Good morning, friends. Welcome to the first weekly video of Bow Ties and Bibles. Oh, is that a spider? Oh, that's a spider. Oh, kill it with fire. Kill it with fire. Oh, 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 oh my goodness. Oh. Killing things with fire. The best way to destroy your enemies. Today's reading is from the Gospel of Luke, the 9th chapter. We'll do the reading today from a King James Bible, 1947, red letter, self-pronouncing edition. This Bible is pretty cool. It has really good illustrations. It also has a photo section of photos from the 40s of Jerusalem, which is pretty cool. So let's find today's reading. Should be right around here. Flipped right to it. Luke chapter 9, starting with the 51st verse. And it came to pass, when the time was come that he should be received up, he steadfastly set his face to go to Jerusalem, and sent messengers before his face, and they went and entered into a village of the Samaritans, to make ready for him. And they did not receive him, because his face was as though he would go to Jerusalem. And when his disciples James and John saw this, they said, Lord, wilt thou that we command fire to come down from heaven and consume them, even as Elias did? But he turned and rebuked them, and said, Ye not know what manner of spirit ye are of. For the Son of Man is not come to destroy men's lives, but to save them. And they went to another village. And it came to pass, that as they went in the way, a certain man said unto him, Lord, I will follow thee whithersoever thou goest. And Jesus said unto him, Foxes have holes, and birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man hath not where to lay his head. And he said to another, Follow me. But he said, Lord, suffer me first to go and bury my father. And Jesus said unto him, Let the dead bury their dead, but go thou and preach the kingdom of God. And another said, Lord, I will follow thee, but let me first go bid them farewell, which are at home at my house. And Jesus said unto him, No man, having put his hand to the plow, and looking back, is fit for the kingdom of God. This gospel has two distinct messages. The first part being the Samaritan's refusal of Jesus on his way to Jerusalem. The second part is his reaction to the people who say they'd follow him, but then have something else to do. So we're going to talk about the first part first, then we'll talk about the second part. In the Samaritan's refusal, it's an interesting dynamic because Jesus has always been almost sympathetic with the Samaritans. He has many parables about the Good Samaritan, the Samaritan woman. Jesus has always been very empathetic with the Samaritans. Their relationship with the Israelites has been one that just doesn't work. So when Jesus is refused by the Samaritans, James and John take so much offense to it that they want Jesus to command fire to come down and burn the Samaritan village to the ground, because how dare they refuse Jesus? Just like Elias did. Jesus says, I am not to bring death to people. I am not to bring around humanity's destruction. I'm here to save everybody. This is hearkening back to the Hebrew scriptures when you have Elijah and the idea of judges, of people who are judging people and destroying lands for disobeying God. That's what James and John are referring to when they talk about calling fire down from heaven to destroy. They were hearkening back to that idea of Jesus as a Hebrew judge, as another judge of the Hebrews. And that's not what Jesus was here for. He says that. He says, I am not here to destroy man, I'm here to save man. So in the second part of this gospel, we find Jesus has arrived in the town, and he is approached by three men. The first man is a certain man. Now in the Gospel of Mark, this certain man is attributed to being a scribe. I don't know if there's any significance in that, but it's interesting in the correlation between the two Gospels. Jesus is encountered by these three people. The first one, he says, I will follow you whithersoever thou goest, or I will follow you wherever you will go. And Jesus says to him, foxes have holes, birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man hath not where to lay his head. So Jesus is saying, everybody else has somewhere to go, but I don't have anywhere that I call home. Jesus is telling this man, if you choose to follow me, we will be vagrants. We are not going to settle down. I am not going to go open a Trump Tower. We are not going to live in a house, have servants. We're not going to have beds. We're going to be walking and preaching. You can't stay in your comfort zone. Timothy J. Keller of the C.S. Lewis Institute published a paper on this section of the Gospel of Luke called The Call to Discipleship. That paper talked about how this section of the gospel message was all about giving up your identity, giving up your former life to follow Christ. Timothy Keller and other theologians of that mindset, their takeaway from this gospel message is deny thyself. You can't have any connections with your past if you choose to follow Christ. However, if you look at Philippians 2 and other such verses where Paul says, do everything without grumbling, don't murmur about it, don't argue. Jesus just doesn't want excuses. Now the second message in the Gospel of Luke is very reminiscent of what's actually the first reading from the lectionary this week. It's a story from 1 Kings, and it's the story of Elias becoming Elijah's attendant. So Elias was found, and he was plowing his fields with 12 oxen. And Elijah said, you need to come follow me. And Elias said, yes, but... And he ended up slaughtering his 12 oxen. He ended up using the plow and the yoke as kindling for the fire to cook the oxen. And he ended up distributing that to the entire community. This verse reminds me of one of the greatest philosophers of our generation, Mr. Miyagi from The Karate Kid. The original, not the remake. When Mr. Miyagi accepts Daniel as his student, he tells him, there are two sides of a road. You can either commit to it or commit not to it. There's no middle road. If you're in the middle of the road, like a bug, you will get squished. Alrighty, that's all for today. Thank you for watching. And remember, the middle of the road, you'll end up squished like grape. Now spread some spiffy. If you have any suggestions for later videos, please put them in the comments below and subscribe.